Hello and welcome to Rise of Humanity. I am your host, Chris Karamaya, and today I'm very excited to be joined by my guest, Howard Martin. Howard is Executive Vice President of the pioneering organisation HeartMath, which is dedicated to empowering people through heart-based living. Howard is one of the original leaders who helped found HeartMath and has been with the organisation since its inception in 1991. He is a contributing author of the new book, Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart, and Howard has also played a key role in the Global Coherence Initiative, a science-based project created to unite humanity and facilitate a shift in global consciousness towards enduring peace. HeartMath's work is beautifully aligned with Rise of Humanity, so it's a pleasure to be able to have
Chris,
you on the
thank
show
you very much
today,
for
Howard.
having me, and I want to thank everybody
here.
already who's listening to this broadcast, whether recording later on or whatever they do there. But thanks for your time and attention, and pleased to be with you today.
Wonderful. So, back in October 2015, I actually attended an Activate Your Heart workshop in London, and it was a really great day. It was great to see other people so interested in this kind of work, and being aware of their impact in the world. And one of the things I remember you saying was how much you enjoyed being able to teach HeartMath as opposed to speak about it. Obviously, both are very important things, but that's one of the things I remember you saying that stuck in my mind.
Yeah, well, I didn't know you were at a live event that I was at. That's great. And yeah, there's lots of different ways to communicate with the world today. And with all the technology that we have, a lot of interviews, for me at least, take place through programs like we're doing today, teleseminars, webinars, interviews of various kinds. And I love them. But there's still something very special about being live, being with people, being in the same energetic field environment with others, and having an opportunity to share that way and to learn from people as I'm out in the world. So I always enjoy my time in the UK. I will be back, and it's a special place for me, and a special place in my heart for the folks who are in the UK or wherever they are.
Awesome. Yes. Yeah, it was a really good day, and I really enjoyed that. So thank you for that. To begin with, can you give us some detail of the HeartMath Institute and what HeartMath is doing and bringing to the world?
Well, basically, HeartMath is the name of our organization. It's also the name of a system, which consists of basically tools and techniques provided through training programs, very innovative technology through our Inner Balance Trainer and M-Wave technology products that help align heart, brain, and body. And it's all designed, to really help empower people through these changing times that we're living in. It's an organization that was created by Doc Childrey. He's the chairman of the organization today. We did it out of care. We could see that changes were coming in the world that was already happening, and we could see an increase in potential chaos and confusion. And we just wanted to do our part to see if we could put together a system based on heart, really, based on the qualities associated with heart, that people could use to navigate the changing times that they were living in. So it's been great. We started out really small. Today we're what I call a big little organization, Chris, meaning that we employ a lot of people, and we have a very large footprint around the world, providing training programs and, again, technology products all over the planet. And at the end of the day, I go back to the reason I did it in the first place, is I believe in what's been said about the heart. I believe in the intuitive qualities of the heart. I believe in the emotional qualities of the heart. I think they're essential for living fulfilling and meaningful lives. They're not just sweet. They're not just sentimental. They have a lot to do with our ability to perform. And I'm just doing what I can as a part of HeartMath and as one man to share that information with others so they can benefit from our work and take it forward into their own lives.
Wonderful. So is there what led you to begin this work of the heart? Was there maybe an event or a turning point in your life where you realized maybe the power that the heart has more than just an organ, perhaps?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I get this question from time to time in interviews, and there was no major, like, singular event. Like, all of a sudden I had this great epiphany, and it was all about heart, you know.
Yeah.
It was more of a slow building process, but it started with a sincere desire to try to go through a self-improvement process. And back when
Hmm.
I started a long, long time ago, well over 40 years ago, East was just beginning to meet West, you know,
Yeah.
and as young people, we were exposed to some of the teachings from Eastern religion and things like that, and it was interesting to me. I found that was sort of fascinating, and it started a journey where I became to realize for myself that, and I think true for others as well, that life is about continuous growth, and that it's important that I put continuous growth at the very forefront of everything that I did as a human being. And so I
Hmm.
began to study and go through trying everything, reading all the books and trying what was in the books. And early in those days, when I was only about 21, I met Doc Childry, who's the man who founded HeartMath. And Doc is only a few years older than me, but he had a really unique awareness about him, and I could tell that there was going to be great benefit in having him as a friend and an associate.
Hmm.
And Doc talked about heart in very different ways. He didn't talk about it just as being sweet and sentimental. He talked about it as a dynamic intelligence, an intelligence that could give us a sense of who we truly were, an intelligence that was intuitive, an intelligence that could help us make decisions big and small as we play the game of life. And we began to explore that, not just Doc and myself, but others as well. And as we began to look at heart through those lenses and to try to apply those principles in our lives, that's when big changes start to occur.
Hmm.
And so we saw improvement in ourselves, and we kept following the trail.
Hmm.
To be honest with you, we never had an intention for it to become a heart math.
Right.
That was born organically. I mean, just we lived in ordinary lives in eastern North Carolina. In case people by now haven't figured out that I have a southern accent, um, but we lived in that part of the world, and basically we're just in a self-discovery process. We didn't have the ambition of it being something that we would put into an organizational structure. I certainly could not see a clear vision for myself that I'd ever be anything like a best-selling author or speaker. That was not in the plan,
Yeah.
Uh, I just didn't see myself that way. But it was through following the heart and really through manifesting the qualities. I mean, heart covers a lot of territory, but look, just trying to put out more care, more compassion, more tolerance, more patience, be more loving, less judgmental, looking more deeply at myself, seeing where there need to be adjustments made and how I operated in the world, what I did with myself, what I did with my thoughts and feelings, using the heart's intuition to really guide that process was what brought me to where I am today. And I can't be appreciative enough of what did happen in my life from looking to and listening to and following my heart.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. So getting into a bit of heart maths teaching specifically, this concept of heart coherence is a very big part of heart maths of work. So could you just describe for the listeners what heart coherence is?
Yeah, I would love to, Chris. First of all, heart coherence is a part of the science of heart math, and probably I should let everyone know that I think a unique characteristic of what we've done here is that we've used science to build a bridge between what people feel about heart, what they've heard and read about it through philosophy and religion, down to practicality, down to something that's real and tangible. So a big part of heart math is rigorous scientific research. Everything that we do, all of our training programs, all of our technology products are underpinned with the scientific research. If you were to go to the nonprofit part of our organization, heartmath.org, and click on the research tab, you will stay busy for a really long time. There are there are over 300 published research studies by us and others on our work, and there are between 6,000 and 7,000 HeartMath references, scientific references in the research literature today. So the research has been important. One of the things that we learned from that research, to more specifically to your question, is that we can hit this internal state that's highly synchronized, and it's called coherence. The scientific or medical term for that is psychophysiological coherence. It's a state where all the major body systems synchronize to an ordered rhythmic beating pattern of the heart. Those systems would include things like digestion, respiration, immune system response, hormonal response, and brain function. All that syncs up, and we enter in this highly efficient, effective, and very healthy state. it's a state where we're really aware. It's not just a sleepy time or blissful state. It is calm. It is balanced, but it's also very engaged with whatever we're doing in life. There's a psychological component to it as well. We enter states of high coherence through activating sustained, regenerative, positive emotions. They would include some that I just mentioned earlier, like when we are caring, we would naturally be more coherent. When we are compassionate or loving or appreciative, those type of heart-related emotions engender coherence. Once we're in the coherent state, this is where it gets really cool, then we have the ability to sustain those emotions. They flow through us more. They become more readily available. And as we learn how to activate more coherence in ourselves over time, what happens is we actually begin to change our own emotional nature, so to speak. The emotional topography within ourselves begins to change, and we become different people. So coherence is healthy. There are health benefits to it. There are performance benefits to it. Our training programs include lots of mainstream organizations, police departments, military, sports, Fortune 100 companies. So there's a high performance quality associated with it. It enhances brain function, for example, allows us to see into things differently, make better decisions. All of those are benefits of coherence. So a lot of the HeartMath techniques that you find in our training programs and what our technology measures is to increase coherence. So coherence is part of an underpinning, so to speak, that you brought up about what HeartMath really offers through training and through technology.
Mm. And you mentioned, obviously, HeartMath is a very science-based approach. How do you feel? I mean, it's had, obviously, that's had a huge impact on the way the world has received your work. But how do you see like the advantage of having that scientific underpinning as opposed to maybe a more philosophical approach?
Yeah, it's a good question. And first, let me just say that our science was never intended to take the heart out of heart.
Yeah.
that we really do respect and appreciate all the aspects of heart that have already been brought forward into the world. What we felt was it needed to have that empirical underpinning. In other words, in today's society, when something is proven scientifically to be true, it adds to the power of belief. It's just the way that it works. When science says, then people can believe. So we felt that people naturally kind of believed in the heart, but that very often they weren't necessarily seeing it as important as it really was. And we felt like if we used science to build that bridge and we could show scientifically that even at the physical level that the heart was doing a lot more than pumping blood, and we didn't know that at first, but that's what we discovered. If we could look at the physical heart first and see what it was doing, and if it showed something that indicated an intelligence, and that could be proven scientifically, it would increase the power of belief that people had in heart. And that's exactly what it did. People that have written about us have said that when we introduced our work, we introduced a new view of physiology and a new view of psychology all at the same time.
Yeah.
And we recast heart in a modern context, and science was how we did it, because we've proven so many things scientifically now about the physical heart that show that it is more than a blood pump, that it's an information processing center in our body. Then it leads credence to and provides, a rationale for why we've believed in the heart for thousands of years, but never knew really why.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very powerful approach, and I mean, you can certainly see the way that, I mean, the amount that I hear of HeartMath and the way people approach it, it's worked beautifully well. But yeah, I mean, it seems, I mean, with the science, you've confirmed what a lot of spiritual teachers have been saying for thousands of years. And I mean, there's a strong history of heart-based living. We know quotes like, follow your heart and think. I mean, have you looked into that work alongside the scientific aspects in HeartMath?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's, like you said, for thousands of years, the heart was talked about as being a very, very special part of us as human beings. And the science just adds to that. It doesn't take away from any of that. And so many people have said to me over these years that I've been doing HeartMath, this was a missing piece for me. Now it explains things to me that I've believed for a long time. Now it gives me permission to believe.
Yeah.
One of the things I've said about our science is it gave the brain permission to go ahead and believe in the heart.
Yeah.
It allows us to say, okay, I knew it was true all along. Now science says now I can feel more comfortable about that. Because people want to follow their hearts. They want to listen to their hearts. They know there's something important about that. But in today's society, with everything moving so fast and all the challenges that we face individually and as a global society, sometimes heart gets lost. Its voice is a little quieter. And we start living from the neck up. And we lose connection with this part of ourselves that's essential. It's that connection and that part of ourselves that was talked about and has been talked about for so many thousands of years.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we talked about the heart coherence, and HeartMath, you offer products to help people engage in a state of coherence. So could you just explain some of the products and how you use them?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. Well, let me just say that one of the ways in which we research heart-brain-body communication, and one of the ways in which we learn to measure coherence, is looking at changes in our heart rhythms. We have heart rhythms, and it's measured through what's called heart rate variability analysis. It's measuring the timing between heartbeats, not the same type of measurement that you get with a fitness monitor that measures just heart rate. This is measuring the timing between heartbeats. Our heart varies in how it's beating and the rhythm in which it's beating all the time, and it's supposed to. We can learn to create order in those rhythms through the activation of sustained positive emotions, and then the physiological and psychological benefits I described earlier come to play. So our technology measures these changes in heart rhythms, especially heart rate variability technology that we took out of the realms of just scientific equipment and put in the hands of people. So we created our first heart rate variability product back in the year 1999. It's computer-based, ran on a computer, a sensor that plugged into the USB connector on the computer and connected to your ear, and then you see on the screen your heart rhythms in real time. And then through a lot of analysis, the combination of databases with Northwestern University, we created algorithms that tell you how coherent those heart rhythms are. And that's the patented part of our technology, is the algorithms. There are a lot of heart rate variability monitors out there, but we patented the understanding of measuring those in terms of their coherence. So the technology's gone on further, and today the primary version of that's used is actually done on mobile devices. We have a product called the Inner Balance Trainer. You download the app for free from your favorite app store. You purchase a sensor from us or from other resellers like HeartMath UK or Amazon or various people that sell it. You use that sensor with this app. And on the app, it's really cool. You see your heart rhythms in real time. You see coherence measurements taking place. It gives you a coherence score. You then, that data uploads to what's called the heart cloud, and on the heart cloud you see all of your sessions, all of your data. You see a leaderboard of how many coherence points people have been generating that day. You see a collective leaderboard of how many coherence points are being generated around the world. And so you use this technology basically for a variety of things. To me, I use it in my meditations, for example. Every morning I do a heart meditation for about 15 or 20 minutes. I use my Inner Balance Trainer to help guide that. It lets me know how coherent I am while I'm doing it, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't have to have it to make that connection with my heart, but it's kind of nice to have it because it gives me some guidance. People use it for things like helping to manage stress. They use it for that as well. Some people use it in more high-performance situations. Athletes, for example, use it to train themselves to have this more high-performance state. So we train Olympic athletes, and we train, athletes like even like hockey players. I know there's dialogue going on in the UK with major soccer teams right now that are using heart rate variability technology hours in our training to improve athletic performance. So there's a lot of different applications and benefits. I think one of the underlying benefits of it, Chris, is that it helps to train us to have more of the emotions in our life that we want. Because to get coherence, you practice simple techniques where you activate those positive emotions. And it trains us to have more of those emotions more often. It gives us the ability to regulate our emotions better. And I think that's important right now because the world is going through so much change. It can be very disconcerting for almost anyone. So it can help us to find that inner balance within ourselves as we navigate life. So the inner balance trainer is the one that I use the most. We have the M-Wave Pro, it's called now, which is what a lot of professionals use. It's computer based. So the technologies for helping us to find that connection with our heart, there are health benefits and performance benefits that are associated with that, and the technology assists us to achieve those benefits.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And I imagine obviously there's a lot of different techniques and stuff and ways to get into a state of coherence, but is there like a a particular technique that you could share with us that is good to use to getting into a state of coherence?
Would be happy to. Let me first of all acknowledge what you just said. There are many ways in which we get into coherence, and there are many processes and many techniques that people use to help themselves. And I want to say that HeartMath is never intended to be competitive with anything else. We are all for anything that gives people benefit, takes people deeper within. We've always seen HeartMath as a friendly facilitator. In other words, you add heart to something, you never lose. It doesn't take anything away. You're just adding heart to it. So whatever processes and techniques people use, a lot of them will help to create more coherence. And coherence is also created naturally in many ways. I mean, you take a nice walk in the woods, you're probably going to be more coherent. For example, a special moment with your child or your grandchild, or being with your pet. All those kind of experiences would be promoting more coherence. At HeartMath, yes, we did develop simple techniques designed to create coherence that we could use in the moment, on the go. A lot of them are designed to be that way. We also recognize that they better be simple, because as we were moving into this era of high-speed change, we recognized people needed help quickly, and that they were not necessarily going to go through long processes to try to help themselves, that things were moving too fast. So the technique I can share with you and with everybody listening right now on a show like this is a very simple technique, but it can have a lot of benefit, and it's something you can use in the midst of your daily activities. It's called the quick-coherence technique, and I'd be glad if you'd like Chris to lead everybody through it.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's 3 steps. The first step that I'd like you to do, and if you're in a position to close your eyes, it could be helpful, but if not, it's okay, is to focus your attention in the area in the center of your chest, the area of your heart. Just focus your attention there in the area in the center of your chest. Put your hand there if you'd like to. Step 2 is called heart-focused breathing. I'd like you to breathe naturally and normally, a little deeper than you normally would. And as you breathe, I want you to imagine as if your breath is flowing in and out, right through the area of the heart in the center of your chest. Now I want you to continue to breathe that way. It's called heart-focused breathing. And as you do, now I want you to activate a regenerative, uplifting feeling. Perhaps it's the appreciation you have for your life, for the good things in your life. Maybe it's the love or the care you have for someone or something in your life, or just a sense of peace and well-being. Whatever comes to you now, just try to feel that regenerative, uplifting feeling as you continue with your heart-focused breathing. Now, as you're doing this, I'll explain what's happening inside your body. It's balancing out a very important part of your nervous system, creating synchronization in your autonomic nervous system, which influences about 90% of your body's functions. It's improving the signal that goes from heart back to brain. That's opening up higher perceptual centers in your brain. As you do this technique, hormones that regenerate you are being released in your body, like DHEA and oxytocin. And it's putting you in a position where you can have more intuitive contact with that larger part of yourself, where intuition has a chance to manifest and integrate with your humanness. And all those benefits are happening from doing heart focus breathing, and the activation of a heart feeling. That's it, Chris.
Wonderful. Thank you. That was wonderful. And so obviously that's going to get you into a much more coherent state. How often do you recommend that people use that kind of on a daily basis? How much time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, people's lifestyles are all very different. I just try to stay in continuous contact with my heart's intelligence. Okay. When I wake up in the morning, before my eyes are even open, I try to drop down on the heart and start my heart-focused breathing. My life is busy like everyone else's, so I get running really fast during the day, and there are times when I just recognize I really need a 1-minute break here, and I need to stop and really genuinely and authentically do that technique. Just drop down and focus my attention in the area in the center of my chest, do the heart-focused breathing, imagine my breath is flowing in and out through that area, and then finding something to appreciate or activating a feeling of love or care. Making contact periodically like that during the course of a day can really help to redirect the flow of that day. And then, of course, there are my heart meditations that I do as well in the morning and usually in the evening. But everybody's lifestyle is a little different. But the interesting thing about quick coherence technique is you can do it while you're on the go. You can do it with your eyes open. Yeah. So you can be driving in the car from one place to another, and you can be doing quick coherence. It's really useful on the train, going, to work. I mean, there's lots of different opportunities to do that. And there's benefits that accumulate over time as people apply that simple technique in their lives.
And I think one of the most powerful things about this technique, and it's a message that I'm trying to get across through my podcast, is that you are the creator of your reality. And by engaging this exercise, I mean, just like that, you can completely change. If you're having a bad day, you can change in that moment how the rest of your day will play out. I mean, it's an incredibly powerful thing to begin to engage with.
Yeah, and that's one of the characteristics of these changing times. I mean, the speed of change is accelerating, and it is creating a lot of chaos and confusion. At the same time, that same energetic momentum is giving us the ability to grow and to change more quickly, and to recognize something that you said is we are actually co-creators of our own reality. And yeah, there are going to be big problems and challenges that come up in life, and they can take a while to work through, but there's so many of the little challenges we come up against day to day that we can shift really quickly, and we can do it easier now than ever before because of the change that's happening. It's neutral. It's facilitating our growth, not just creating chaos. So you can make those changes quicker, and I find the same thing you find. If I'll do that, it can really change the direction and quality of the day that I am co-creating.
Yeah, it's so exciting when you realize you can do that. I love it. And something you mentioned during that quick coherence technique was intuition. I mean, you can use this to upgrade your performance, maybe if you're an athlete or something like that. But I mean, and this is something that HeartMath talks about, this heart intelligence and the intuition of the heart. And it's obviously, it sounds to me it's a much deeper level than just upgrading your performance. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we talk about it a lot. Our newest book, the one that myself, Doc Childry, and Deborah Rosman, our CEO, and Roland McCready, Director of Research, we wrote together. It's published a little year or so ago, year and a half now, I guess. It's called heart intelligence. We just went right. Heart intelligence, connecting with the intuitive guidance of your heart. So it's exactly about that subject. What we found with intuition is that intuition is often looked at as something grandiose. It's a gigantic aha moment, a new discovery, something like that. But that intuition is actually something that's always there. It's in the air, so to speak. It's in the consciousness field environment. And that intuition does show up and can show up in very practical ways. Deciding whether it's time to talk to that person now or not. What language should I use? Which person should I hire? Should I eat that second piece of chocolate cake? I mean, there's lots of different ways, that intuition is always there to, guiding us, giving us direction. Intuition is where we have an inner knowingness that doesn't have to go through the same sort of linear process to reach an understanding. It's a knowingness. It's a feeling that we have. And it's really always there. We learn to attune to intuition. We learn to draw intuition in. And then it's a guidance system, like a navigation system for us that we apply in very seemingly ordinary ways in life, but that have a big impact on the decisions that we make. Decisions, whether they be big decisions or little decisions, that do, in fact, direct the flow and the quality of what we co-create as our reality.
But it all begins with, it's a practice. It has to be cultivated, and you begin by just tapping into the heart.
That's right, and that's part of what we teach, and what our technology does, and all of that. It's got a lot to do with intuition and the unfoldment of intuition. For me, the biggest thing right now that I'm excited about is really about this movement that I see in the world, this momentum of where our heart is showing up. More heart-based living is really manifesting itself in so many different ways in all over the world. And, I see it as a movement. I see it as a change in consciousness where the qualities of the heart, things like less judgment, things like standing up against judgment, certainly the desire for more cooperation than competition. Those are characteristics of a more heart-based world, heart-connected world beginning to unfold. So a lot of my work today in doing things like being on your program and having the privilege of being on your program today is to bring that message to people, that there's a momentum going on and we can tap into that. It's bigger than just us. To me, the new emergence of heart intelligence is part of the evolutionary imperative of these times. It's part of this thing called the shift. And I see it happening, and I'm very excited after all these years of work and working through HeartMath to see how much momentum there is around the creation of a heart-connected world.
Yeah, I can definitely see it unfolding as well. You have to look closely, but when you look, it's there. And as you said earlier, the energy is neutral. And one of the things I remember from the workshop in London that I attended is you said that chaos can spiral upwards as well as downwards. It doesn't have to be a negative thing, and I suppose it's just a matter of perspective and choosing for it to be an upward momentum.
Yeah, that sounds good on paper, but it's kind of hard to do when we're faced with terrorist attacks and weather-related issues and all of that. Yeah. But in fact, it is true. It really is true. There's an upside to the whole thing, and it's a matter of how often we can see that upside. What choices are we making and how we perceive what's really going on? Even in the most tragic of times, in the most challenging of situations, there's something about that actually can at times bring people together through a reevaluation of their lives and a reevaluation of what it means to be alive. I don't wish hardship on anyone, and I certainly don't want to see more disasters. But in things like the weather-related disasters that have happened in the United States, for example, the stories that have come out of that about how people have learned to help each other, how they've dropped agendas, how they've dropped concerns about race or religion or sexual preference or any of that stuff, and they're people. And they're people that are coming together to try to serve the needs of everyone else. So there's a little upside right in the midst of something like that happens. And so there's the chaos that we're going, the energetic change, let's put it that way, not just the chaos, but that energetic momentum that's really speeding up evolution has so many upsides to it. We tend to focus on the problems that we see in the world that are coming from so much change and so much so much speed of change. But at the same time, if we look and see it through a different lens, we can see another picture happening as well. One of the things that I'm doing to facilitate that is something I didn't have when I was with you in London, Chris. Those, back a while ago. When was that? When did you see me? 2015.
Yeah, October 2015.
Yes. So I created a new program called the Heart Facilitator program.
Mm-hmm.
It's a program that allows people to be approved to share HeartMath information, techniques, and science in a less expensive way, in a quicker way. It's a program that you actually shipped a really beautiful box, and in that box you get the technology sensors part of it. It comes with the program. There's a welcoming card in there and a little guidebook, a pretty beautiful little guidebook. And on the welcoming card, it gives you a code where you access audio recordings. And you listen to 6, they're short, 20 to 30 minute audio recordings. Myself and others did those. They teach a HeartMath technique similar to the one that we learned, but it's broken down for people to get the full understanding. It shares some HeartMath science. It also gives people training on how to use the Inner Balance Trainer, and then it has a module about how to share all that with others. And so the purpose of it is so people can begin to have a bit more training and understanding of how they can add heart to what they do. So let's say a doctor who wants to start the session with a patient by just adding some heart. Well, they know how to do that. Or a yoga teacher that would like to do that. Or someone who gives workshops that wants to add a little HeartMath to those workshops. There's a lot of different ways it can be applied. And that's why we call it the Add Heart Facilitator program. It's just equipping people to add more heart. The reason that I did it at a bigger level was that I wanted to do more to facilitate this movement of heart emerging in the world that I see. So by having this program, more people can get involved quicker. And so we just came out with it, 2 or 3 months ago, and there's already over 1,000 people that have become Add Heart facilitators. Wow,
that's awesome.
And that's kind of exciting, because now the numbers will increase. It'll be 10,000 soon. We have a lot of trainers and coaches around the world. If you're listening from the UK, you can contact HeartMath UK and become a HeartMath coach. They do that program, for example. So we have about 6,000 or 7,000 of those people around the world that have accumulated over years. But now the numbers can double and triple and quadruple through the Add Heart Facilitator program. So that's something that I'm into, but it's again, it's a part of what I'm really into, which is trying to facilitate this movement that I see unfolding and doing my part to add to it.
Absolutely. And you talked about numbers there and building up the amount of people that are doing this heart-based work. Could you talk about the electromagnetic power of the heart? Because I think it surprised people maybe a lot to discover that we have this huge energy field emanating from our hearts, and then it can affect other people around us as well.
That's exactly right. Well, that's one of the things we focus on in the little science piece in the Add Heart Facilitator. We chose that particular subject to be one of the major themes of it. The heart is an electrical organ. It produces by far the strongest source of electricity in our bodies. That electrical energy is what's measured when we get an electrocardiogram. The electrical energy produced by the heart goes to every single cell in our body, but it also creates an electromagnetic field that surrounds our body in 360 degrees. That field actually radiates outside the body and extends outside the body about 3 to 4 feet. It's not an aura that we're measuring here or subtle energy. It's measured with traditional scientific equipment. It's measuring electromagnetic fields, and the heart produces an electromagnetic field, again, that radiates outside the body 3 to 4 feet out. That field is constantly changing. Well, there's the information in the field is constantly modulating. The primary influence on that modulation is our emotional state. If we're feeling frustrated, angry, sad, anxious, depressed, etc., it produces a very incoherent or chaotic field. Conversely, if we're experiencing more compassion, more care, more love, more appreciation, more kindness, more patience, the field changes. It becomes a very coherent field. So literally, we are broadcasting our emotions through this field. Now the questions and the things that we research today are how do fields affect one another? How does the field of the heart affect the field of another? How does what happens in a collective environment when a lot of people are together? What's that collective feel like? When we come together and we create coherently connected fields through groups of people, what does that do for the world, and how does that impact the world itself, even to the energetic fields produced by the earth? These are all the things that we research today. But it comes back to, yeah, we got this field and it changes, but it comes back to, do we manifest the qualities of the heart? What are we feeding the field, in other words? Yeah. It's an interesting question that I ask myself all the time, every day, is what am I feeding that field? But it's exciting new research, and the research that we're doing today is around understanding the energetic connections between all living systems. It's also research on what we call social coherence. What happens in groups of people as they become more coherent collectively and together.
Yeah, and I suppose this perhaps an example of that. I've heard of big like group meditations being done in cities, and lowering enough people coming together and meditating, and it's lowered crime rates and things like that. I mean, have you heard that those kind of things being done?
Yeah, they've been around a long time. Those stories go back to the TM days, of some things that they did. And then there's a good friend of mine who happens to live in the UK, another author named Lynn McTaggart, who does that kind of work. She's got a new book out. It's called The Power of Eight. It's about how they put these people together in groups of 8, and then they do these experiments, influencing change in the world. And so there are a lot of things like that going on, and there are a lot of collective meditations and that happen regularly, and that's really important. Our research is on understanding, how this could be, right? So we have what's called the Global Coherence Initiative, which we have sensor sites placed around the world measuring changes in the Earth's energetic fields. Those fields are the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere, and those fields do affect us. A lot of research already out there on the effect those fields have on us. So our sensor sites, which are really cool and sophisticated, are feeding data back to our labs here in Northern California, and we are looking at that data to understand more about the fields themselves, to also continue with our research on how these fields are affecting us. But we're also testing over a long period of time a hypothesis that we, in fact, impact those fields, that mass human emotion from the 7.3 billion of us that live here actually influences the Earth's energetic fields, and those fields, in turn, affect us. So that's the kind of work we're doing to contribute to that same sort of movement where people are coming together using their energetic connections to create positive change.
And it sounds like the reach of the electromagnetic field of the heart, I mean, it sounds as though it's infinite, but what research has been done into how far it actually extends out of the heart?
Well, you don't know. I mean, it's like it could be infinite. When you take off the boundaries of Newtonian physics and add in quantum physics, then you remove some of those boundaries. So it could be an infinite field, really. It's hard to measure, but we're measuring with traditional research equipment, so that's a reliable measurement. That's something we can stand behind. That's something that's scientifically validated and accepted across the board. So that's what we can do more easily, and that's what we have done with our technology, with a lot more research to go. Let me put that in context. There's a lot more to be understood and a lot more to analyze and figure out over time for us to come to any conclusions. But it's something that we're on to, and something that we've invested in, and something that I'm very excited about.
Wonderful, yeah. So you mentioned there about the Global Coherence Initiative, and it's sensors placed around the world to detect levels of coherence. Is that how it works?
It's measuring changes that in the ionosphere and geomagnetic field, not coherence. It's just looking at the changes that occur in those fields. Those fields are dynamic. They're always changing. They're influenced by things like solar activity. And so they're looking at the frequency changes and power spectrum changes and a lot of different things that are going on in those fields is what those sensor sites are looking at. And again, testing a hypothesis, if we are putting out collectively a more coherent signal from humanity, would that impact the fields? We don't know that yet. We don't know that it's true. We don't know that it's not true. But that's the type of research that we're doing now to look at this over long periods of time.
Can you give any examples of some like profound results or shifts in what the sensors are picking up at particular times in the world, in history?
Actually, I can't. The reason is because there's a lot of data, a lot of things to be understood, as I said, and we can't just make general assumptions based on what we see. It has to be done through rigorous science. And so it's better, there are some interesting papers that are coming out now from the Institute of HeartMath Institute, showing that there's a global synchronization happening between people as these fields change. That's a study that's being published now, showing that it is a global effect. When the fields go through changes, so do people. Their heart rhythms change. Their psychological behavior is manifesting in similar ways. That's the type of research we're publishing. But we're not ready yet to say, well, this event took place and this is what we saw in the fields. And it's better that we don't do it that way. And the reason is this is advanced scientific research, and it could be challenged, right? Just like any research could. So we don't want to make statements about research that bring up too much of a challenge until we're really certain about something and can be published in a major scientific journal. And that way it's got a lot more credibility. So rather than us trying to talk about it or say that this is what we think we see, we'd rather be sure that this is what we're seeing before we go public with it on a program like yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand that. So just for the listeners then, could you just kind of sum up your perspective on where you feel humanity is at, just your own personal perspective, and what people can, expect in the future from your point of view, and how people can play a part in the unfolding of the future?
We are in an interesting time period, Chris, where change is again accelerating. The chaos is increasing, of course, we see that. At the same time, more and more people are coming into a more solid recognition of who they are and why they're here. And that is happening in hundreds and hundreds of millions of people all over the planet. Through that, new insights, new ideas, new innovation, new cooperation, lots of things are happening. And so when I step back and I look at it and I try to see it from the top down, not so immersed in the moment-to-moment things that are taking place, and see it from a wider angle view, what I see is that we are moving very quickly towards what we want. That the evolutionary curve is happening. The trend graph, so to speak, is headed in the right direction. That a new world is in fact emerging right in the midst of the old one, and it's happening quicker than we might think. We are going to have to go through more time periods of things that that could be difficult. That's not going to immediately go away, but the beauty and resilience of the human spirit is coming to the surface in ways that it never has before, and that in fact we are going to come through this and there's going to be a very different world in place down the road. And I don't know, time is something that's hard to predict, but it's happening quicker than we think. So I'm very hopeful, open-ended. I see the problems. I do not ignore them. I have compassion for what people are going through. But from a bigger picture view, I think we're on the right track and that we're headed in the right direction, and a new world is showing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. So there's a couple of questions I'd just like to ask people in each interview. And the first one, what would be your best advice for people looking to lift their level of consciousness today?
To begin to look to something they already have inside, which is their heart, to begin to respect that more and honor it, to carry themselves in the world in a way that they are just operating a bit more kindly, first of all to themselves, then to others, to put that at the forefront of what people do, and consciousness increases will follow that. And again, it's heart connection, manifesting heart qualities in daily life, and the consciousness will start to unfold, leading to the next steps.
Wonderful. And what would be your best advice on how people can contribute to the rise of humanity?
Well, it's kind of the same way. I mean, I think that the most important service that we perform is actually making changes in ourselves. It puts out an energy from us that goes into the energetic field environment that we all draw from, making it easier for others. So don't take the little things that you accomplish lightly. Every time you shift an attitude, every time you're starting to judge somebody, but instead you have a sense of compassion about that person, every time you start to get frustrated but you stop and you say, wait a minute, I'm just not going to go there this time. I'm going to find a way to make peace with this. That is your service. That's the biggest service any of us ever do. So as we all do that more moment to moment, day to day, that is what creates the new world. So honor yourself for that. And the first thing that I'd like to say to people before we close our interview, the last thing I'd like to say is this. Please have compassion for yourself. That's where it has to start. We're living in interesting times that are often challenging. I'm sure that we all do wonderful things, that we're good people doing the best we can. We're not always going to meet our expectations, and we can get down on ourselves. When you find yourself there, just go and have a talk with your heart and say, it's okay. Everything's really all right. Make that connection. Give yourself the gift of self-compassion. It's an act of service for yourself. It's also an act of service to the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So could you just share with the listeners what the best way is to find out more about HeartMath's work?
Yep, go to HeartMath.com and especially check out the Add Heart Facilitator program. You can also check out the Inner Balance Technologies, etc. If you are a citizen in the UK, go to HeartMath UK. We have great representatives in the UK that do training programs there and also provide the same products and services. If you're interested in scientific research, or if you want to know about how to get materials that help children, the underserved, people like that, go to heartmath.org. That's our nonprofit. So heartmath.com for most things. HeartMath UK if you're a citizen of the UK. heartmath.org for scientific research and for wonderful programs and products that help children and underserved populations.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So it's been great to have you on the show today, Howard. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing all this wonderful work you're doing with the listeners. And it really is such great work that you and HeartMath are doing. So I extend my gratitude out to you for coming on the show today and sharing this.
Chris, thank you very, very much for having me. I appreciate it. And again, thank you all for wherever you are, whenever you're listening, for your time and attention. And my sincere hope is that the conversation Chris and I have had today will benefit you in some way, will add some quality and add some heart to your life.
So that is all for today, guys. I hope you've gotten some big takeaways from this episode and absorbed some of this information, as it is of such great importance to the future of humanity. So thank you all so much for listening. I'll catch you all next time. Take care. Bye-bye.